start time, but the join rate's still very high. So we'll give a few minutes for people to finish joining. The join rate is still fairly high, so we'll give it another moment. All right, the join rate is slowed. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking part of your day to help have these conversations. If you're able, please share video. Do remember that these sessions are being recorded and will appear on YouTube after the session ends. The agenda is at the notes page. It's already pasted into the chat. If you've not had a chance to skim it, please do so now. You can expand the outline of the agenda on the right side to see an outline of the notes so far, the notes titles. It's a great way to look to see if there is a topic that you want to cover that's not already called out. If you have such a topic already that you know that you'd like to have added to the agenda, please either enter it or speak up at any point. These sessions run smoothly enough that we rarely need to use the queue management features of Metaco. Just jump in when you have a comment. If we end up with a topic that is lively enough that we need to invoke queue management, I'll call for it when we need it. Otherwise, it's just please speak at will. All right, not hearing any immediate calls for additional agenda items, we'll start in with the hot topics that we've identified so far. The first thing I wanted to touch on was following up on the report that we sent at the end of IETF 121 about the difficulties that the data tracker encountered on Monday and Wednesday, particularly of the IETF 121 meeting. As we noted in that report, the root cause of the outage was very poor performance of an NFS server. The node was doing fine. File system access on the node that the file systems was living on was fine. The problem was very definitely in the NFS software, and we believe on the server side of the software, because multiple clients were reporting problems once we knew what to look for. Had we rebooted that server immediately before the meeting, we likely wouldn't have seen that we had this problem. It's a cumulative problem with the load on the server being exercised for a period of time since its last point in the boot cycle. And we just let that one stack up too hard. It was also driven by the ever increasing levels of automated traffic that we have to deal with. So what we are doing about it, as mentioned in that report, is that we are adding monitoring so we know when that particular part of the architecture isn't performing the way that it should be early, and can take corrective measures before it becomes an outage level. We also are going to change our focus, and more on that a little bit later on, to move the primary access to the file system artifacts. And by file system artifacts, I mean things like drafts and agendas and recordings and the other things that the data tracker has to date pulled off of disk and served into a blob store, and make architectural changes such that as much as possible, the access to those artifacts don't involve shoveling the bits through the data tracker. So the clients can access those bits directly using the direct access to the blob store as much as we can do so. We've also been improving some of the heavy computation views, moving them to offline computation and populating cache. And the other thing that I wanted to call out here, I guess two things. I will reinforce again that we're very happy to have time with some experts from Cloudflare, particularly one person from their DDoS mitigation team, going through our application firewall rules and our rate limiting rules, showing us how we can better identify traffic that's clearly nuisance traffic and better mitigate the effect of that on our origin servers, get Cloudflare to better shed that load. The other thing I wanted to call out was that we're seeing the benefit of the separation of concerns of moving the applications into the cloud. The part of the system that deals with logins to Medico, the auth.ietf.org aspect of the data tracker, did not suffer any outage. It was up for the entire meeting, even when the data tracker itself was struggling. Does anybody have any questions, any other aspects of the difficulty we had and what we're planning to do about it that you'd like to talk about today? All right. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what we're planning to focus our resources on between now and next March's meeting. We've had a large number of projects that have been waiting for cycles, and that list has only been getting longer as we've been focusing on the infrastructure transition. Towards just before 1/21, we were starting to get time to spend on the new applications development, and the velocity was increasing. We're expecting that velocity to continue to build, and we'll see more obvious progress on adding features to Data Tracker, for example. We are, as I mentioned, going to spend time early in this cycle on changing the architectural stance of the data tracker to make use of the blob stores instead of the file stores. That's captured in the tools roadmap. We've updated the tools roadmap to highlight more of the major projects that we have in our queue and to order them as best we can in a system that only has the view only gives us a single linear ordering. But if you would please look at that roadmap, inspect that leftmost column in particular. We're planning to focus on the projects that are in that column, roughly in the order that's in that column. So if you don't think that the priorities are in the right place, in the right order, now's a good time to talk about it and let us adjust. If anybody sees anything in that column that they really think we should defer to some later time and pull other items from other columns in, or if there is a big pressing need that you're aware of that is not reflected on that roadmap, please call those out as well.
So, Robert, it's pretty vague what IEB workshop support means. Could you tell us a little bit? Because it's about middle of the list, right?
Right. So the IEB has had a request with us for several months to make it easier to manage workshop materials as they're working up to a workshop. A workshop can have multiple sessions, different meeting times. The modeling that we have right now is making it very difficult. So at the moment, the IAB's meetings are modeled as if the workshops were teams, similar to what the tools team is. And it leads to odd labeling that they're just dealing with for the moment, but they've got a number of feature requests that they would like to see made so that when someone goes to a workshop page, they see something that says, these are the papers that have been involved in this workshop. These are the meetings that this workshop has had, in a little easier to digest format. It's a medium-sized amount of work that we need to do. It's mostly adjustments to a new group type and the group features associated with that group type. But it's been cycle starved. We've not been able to work on it, and we're hoping to get it in during this cycle. Is that a sufficient description, Russ?
Yeah, that helped me. But it's something that, a couple code sprints might have been able to do. Not just one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If we're talking about prioritization, in the third column is the data tracker history on people. If it would be possible to do that sooner in the middle and add that to the middle column, or I'm sorry, the second from the left, that would be great.
All right. Just realizing that things are fairly full here, and
can we
necessarily go ahead.
Sorry, Roman, are you okay if we move the in memoriam to that, to swap it with those two over for that?
Yes, I think the topic I mentioned is higher priority than the in memoriam. But I don't know whether those are equal sized tasks.
No, I was going to just.
I don't think they are.
All right, so this should be an ongoing effort. I mean, Roman, if you see anything else right now, do feel free to pile in, everybody else as well. But don't.
I wanted to endorse the idea of tackling the update of the liaison tool. I think that's great. If
Yeah,
there's
can
something
I-
more specific on what we plan to do there, that'd be great to kind of read. But I also kind of understand maybe this is the start of the conversation and we have some time to figure that out.
Yeah, the IAB has given me a document that's basically an outline of requirements. I plan to, if it's not linked from the card, I could link it from that card into the ticket in the data tracker that has those. So let me.
So for everyone here, just to be clear, we do get regular questions asked. Are we following community priorities? Are we doing the things that community want? How do we prove we're following community priorities? And it is through this discussion at this meeting about this roadmap, which is what really important for setting our priorities. So we go out and say to other people, yes, we're definitely meeting priorities because we've discussed this and had a chance for anybody to say if they disagree or want things moved around. So this is your chance. Otherwise, we're going to claim, silence is assent and consent, and that you're all very happy and the community is entirely supportive of this set of priorities.
Well, speaking as an IAB member that has been heavily involved in the liaison side, please, that is something we really, really need. That's even probably more important in my mind than the workshops. Cindy may disagree with me, but we get so much incoming liaison management stuff that system has needed an overhaul for quite a while. So.
And the specification that I have for where they want to take the liaison management system is to simplify it quite a bit. So I will make sure that link gets in. I'll send a note to the tools discuss list so that everybody sees that the description of what's planned for that.
Yeah, just taking a look at who's in the call in terms of getting community feedback. I think if you subtract the staff, the non-com appointed positions, and the liaisons associated with it, we have very thin representation of the community.
Now, what can we do about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question I think we've talked about before about how we get more feedback on the specific kind of the specific taskings. I know, for example, like we talked about the thumbs upping kind of thing. I don't know, but that's something we should. I don't want to kind of a flip answer kind of here online, but I think this is something we continually need to kind of work on to improve that engagement.
Yep. All right.
Maybe post the hedge doc notes after each call to the tools discuss. That will generate some discussion and let people know that we should pay more attention to this part.
Yeah, I'll try. I think a large part of what Roland's trying to point to is that the tools discussed list isn't reaching a big enough part of the community yet. So. All right. Do please continue to engage on this on lists with email with me directly. I'm happy to make adjustments to this and how we're approaching it based on feedback on a continuous basis. Unless somebody has some other thing that they'd like to dive into, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next topic for this call. All right, the next item that we've got in here is we're planning to add another part of the Grafana universe into our monitoring stack, if you would. And that's opening it to the current concept of observability and adding the this tempo product, which is basically a large number of points that add observability points from the browser through the application, through the parts of the networking that are moving the bits, working more on building traces that are aggregatable on more dimensions than just this person made a request and got this response, which is what most of our the model that most of the monitoring tools that we have in place right now is based on. We expect this to go in the next few weeks, probably the data tracker release after the upcoming one. There'll be a data tracker release this week. I'm hoping that we will have experience with tempo on smaller applications and we can have this into the data tracker in the release after that. Wes, we're thinking of using the Guides app while it's in its between meeting quiescent state as an early victim to add this functionality to and make sure it's doing what we're expecting that it's doing and not more.
I like being a victim.
But this should dramatically increase our ability to identify spots in the system that aren't behaving the way that we're expecting that they're behaving and can focus optimization work on based on the output. On the email processing front, we have identified a hosting service that has the very good properties for the having good mail reputation for its addresses, having access to both V4 and V6 address space, being inexpensive for multiple addresses in both of those families, having the it looks like a good fit for at least an initial move of IETF into the cloud. And we are going through the process of planning a simple uplift of what's currently in IETF, and then after that, talk about going where we intended to go in the first place with a full-featured test-driven rewrite of the mail processing system.
I'm confused. You're saying instead of doing a one-step, we're going to do a two-step.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe more than two, but the initial step will be basically to just move the processing system with all of its warts as is into a different location. The folks that are looking at that haven't developed dates yet. I'm hoping to start to get a set of estimates for when they would want to start the move of this thing in the next week. The other thing I wanted to call out that Mailman 3 is the thing that people tend to touch the most. We're collecting a backlog of feature requests for changes to Mailman 3 at the link that's in the notes. If there is some aspect of using Mailman 3 that is not pleasing you, please add to that list of requests. And at some point, we will resource making these changes. All right, the next thing that I wanted to talk about and get some feedback on, the Secretariat has had in physical storage a large number of blue sheets that from older meetings, going back to meetings with a 2 in the first digit. They've scanned them. I have the bits of the scans. We're in the process of figuring out how we're going to make these bits available to the community. The options that we're looking at are going into the older proceedings and doing the work that we would need to do to the handcrafted, almost algorithmically crafted HTML that those older proceedings are built into, to just add, here are links to the blue sheets for those blue sheets stored somewhere. Or going into the data tracker and modeling those earlier meetings down to a point where we have something to hang the blue sheets off of. Very briefly, for modern meetings, we have a meeting object. That meeting object has a very large number of session objects for each session that meets at the meeting, and things like agendas and blue sheets are hung off of those session objects. For earlier meetings, I think I had called out in the notes roughly where that boundary is. There is just a meeting object. There are no session objects. There are, when somebody goes to look for the proceedings, we just redirect out to the static part of the www.ietf.org site currently for HTML that was built at the time. A third option that we've considered is just making these available in a new place. Here is a list of old blue sheets that if you need them, you can look at them here. Discoverability properties of that are less pleasant than normalizing them to the way that people are used to, either in the data tracker or the website at the moment. But it is one of the simplest things we can do with them. And I wanted to see if we could brainstorm in this session other things that we could do besides those three things, if anyone has any flashes of inspiration.
So, Robert, as a hybrid of the two, right now you point to a page that basically has the CD, the PDF from the CD, right?
It's HTML. It's not PDF. It is from the CD, but it's a family of HTML documents.
So can't we just add a document to that set that contains the blue sheets from that meeting?
Yeah, so that was really the first option that I was talking about, right? You just have to go find a way to edit the HTML page that lists the agenda and whatever, to add a link to the blue sheets and put the blue sheet somewhere that link would point to.
Which seems like a pain in the butt for 80 some meetings, but at the same time, it then renders a static thing that we know how to deal with.
Yep. Any other thoughts? Anybody have any strong preferences? Thank you, Jay. All right. At this point, most of what is in the rest of the notes is intended to be taken as read, but we'll take a few minutes to see if anyone has questions about what was there or want to talk about any of the other sections in more detail. I will, I guess it is worth calling out on the call that the data tracker search behavior is going to change. We've to date had several URL paths that would cause the data tracker to do search work if somebody did just a get to that URL path based on content in the query string part of the URL. This is a place where automated traffic can cause the origin to do a lot of work that in many cases isn't even then used. So we are changing this to where causing the data tracker to do search work requires going through a form post. So you've had to have done a get to get us the CSRF token, have a form with the search parameters filled out that validates, and a post to that form to cause the actual search work to get done. This will significantly change how much work the origin is doing based on automated traffic. It will be a change in behavior for users. It'll be an extra click in some cases. We might have some unintended side effects that we'll have to work out from links from inside the data tracker, where somebody's used to following a single link and they get a search result page that they might end up with having to click a button again. We'll find a way to smooth those out if they exist. But so far, we haven't identified them.
So, Robert, I was kind of surprised that the changing of the name of the IETF trust didn't make your hot topics.
I think there's an update in here that we basically figured out what we need to do from a tooling perspective to support that name change.
Yeah, I mean, it's an external thing, but it really does drive important IPR aspects of our existence.
Yeah. So we've figured out the work that we need to do to XML to RC and to ID NITs too. We've got PRs ready to merge. We're waiting for the trust to publish the TLP6 so that we know that we've got the bits exactly right. And then we'll work out a date with the trust to cause the things like the submission tool to require the new boilerplate.
So over in the chat, Karsten has asked when the TLP6 is going to drop. Do we know when that is?
You have to ask Glenn and Glenn Dean. So when I asked him at the end of 121, he said in the next couple of weeks.
They're trying to schedule a call with the CCG, and people are being very slow to respond to the doodle. Glenn doesn't know is the answer.
Yeah, I talked to him. It's the CCG is one of those things that has nominally existed for many years, but has never actually had to do anything before. So there turned out to be a whole lot of broken pieces that had to be turned on before anything could happen. Yeah, so I think with luck, it's weeks. More plausibly, I think a month or two.
Yeah, the funny thing is the IETF didn't have any parts turned off. The NRO didn't have any parts turned off. ICANN did.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I think we're to the unless somebody has an item from the notes that they'd like to highlight, I think we're to the point of any other business.
I just wanted to, since Wes did call me out by name, jump back to the tools prioritization question for a minute, the IAB workshops versus the liaison tool oversight. And I will say that while the workshop stuff has been kind of annoying for me personally and slightly confusing, I do think that the liaison stuff is actively painful for a number of people. So if the priorities on those get swapped, I would be fine with that.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone again. Watch the tools discuss list. I'll follow Michael's suggestion and just cut paste the final notes as a, just send the markdown to the list. I'll also be loading the data tracker with the upcoming tools meetings between now and IETF 122. If anybody sees any issues with the dates that those land on, let me know early so we can adjust them. I would like to call out that if you have, for years, the Secretariat maintained a Google Calendar for the tools team, and the tools meeting showed on this Google Calendar. I think we should stop using that. The calendar can continue to exist for exceptional tools related things, but for the regularly scheduled tools meetings, people should rely on subscription to the data tracker instead, so we have the single source of truth and aren't having to chase changes through multiple systems. So if you're not already subscribed to the tools meetings by way of the data tracker, please subscribe to them that way. Well, thanks everyone again for taking time to have these conversations, and we will see everyone online over the next few weeks. Talk to you soon.